Hey guys, continuing Iamblichus' Exhortation to Philosophy, chapter 19. In this chapter, Iamblichus tries to make a division between what is good and what is pleasurable, and say that good does not equal pleasure, and pleasure does not equal good. So Iamblichus begins by saying that we can look at the goods of the body, and those may be pleasurable. And by their presence, they bring pleasure, but they're not necessarily good. And I'll say what he says, and then I'll try to understand it and interpret it. Then he says the soul, the goods of the soul, are good, and by their presence they bring good, but they are not to be pursued in search of pleasure, for the sake of pleasure. This is what he says at the very beginning of this chapter. Now, how do I understand this? First of all, what are goods of the soul? As I understand it, it's things like justice, virtue, wisdom, and so forth. Those are the true goods. And we see him earlier on in the very beginning chapters. I think he calls these things goods. Goods that cannot be taken away and goods that make all other things good. But they're not necessarily pleasurable. Or rather, we do not seek those things to derive some kind of pleasure from them for the sake of pleasure. I think he means that we experience pleasure more on the level of the body. And so it would be a confusion to try and seek eternal things and try to get to lower their experience to that of the physical body. It does not make sense, and I think it would be degrading, and it would be kind of devaluing that which we're seeking. I think that's how he means it. Because often justice and self-control, for example, temperance, good of the soul could be argued, temperance and self-control is a good of the soul, is not very pleasurable. And could actually be unpleasant when we have something in front of us that we want to eat, and we really want to eat it, like a cake, and we have to exercise self-control because, I don't know, we have high blood sugar or something, or for whatever other reason, and we're resisting, we're not eating it. That is not pleasurable. That is on the level of the body. It could be argued that that is painful. That if we give in and we just eat, then we'd get pleasure from that. If this could be one argument, as I understand it, then we can see that sometimes goods of the soul will not be pleasurable on the level of the body, and could sometimes actually be painful on the level of the body. But overall, in the long term, they bring us, essentially could be argued, they bring us pleasure and they bring us happiness. So if we develop our self-control, we resist that cake and so forth, if we do it enough of times, then a cake will not cause a stir in us, and many other things will not cause a stir in us. We'll be at peace, whatever is laying in front of us. And so a good on the level of the soul, self-control, will give us a pleasurable state in the experience of this body, a peaceful state that is not dependent on other objects, cakes, cars, phones, computers, and so forth. That's how I understand this part. But here we see a huge confusion. Often, when people do not understand these things, we believe that whatever is pleasurable must necessarily be good for us. And people really believe this, and I believe this for a long time, and I'm sure I still believe it on some level. And regarding some things, whatever is very highly pleasurable must be good for me. And people will argue this in different ways to try and defend their pleasures, when in reality it could be bad for them. And we remember one of the previous chapters from Exhortation to Philosophy, where Iamblichus says that extreme, and I made a video on it, where he says pleasure and pain, where he says like extreme pleasure and extreme pain are like nails that nail the soul to the body. And thus cause suffering to the person. So yeah, I'm sorry I'm a little bit slow today. It's very late, and I've done like 10 of these videos today or something like that, and I had lots of clients, and just been a busy day. So yeah, so let's do a quick meditation and finish after that. You can do any meditation you want. I'll do a prayer. Okay, thank you all for your time. If you see a... I'm so sorry, I'm just falling asleep. If you see a video right now, click on it to keep watching this channel.